light within my heart, light within my thoughts, light within my words. May one and all and everything, blessed and loved, ever be. Welcome. I am Sister Who. Today I wanted to offer a few thoughts and reflections. It's a broader subject than just the biblical source, I guess. I was thinking the other day of adversarial situations and conflicts of various kinds. And just because it's the religious system with which I was most familiar during my childhood, the verse comes to mind, not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and so forth. It's a verse from the New Testament of the Bible in which the basic idea of the thoughts I wanted to offer today, which of course again we're just scratching the surface. So if you have any contrasting perspective or any further way you'd like to elaborate on this subject, you're welcome to contact me to be a guest on a future show. But the basic idea of this was to understand that when we are battling evil behaviors or dysfunctional behaviors or adversarial behaviors, violent or warlike behaviors, that there may be a current manifestation in front of us who is an individual with a name and a face. But the encouragement is to remember that what we're really battling is not just that individual, because we could eliminate that individual and still have the problem. One of the obvious examples, I suppose, of this might be institutionalized bigotry of any kind. That there may be a specific person in the particular administrative or political office who is saying these horrendously bigoted things. If you attack that individual and remove that individual from office, you won't necessarily fix the problem. Because if the bigoted way of doing things has become entrenched such that the institution is behaving that way decade after decade after decade, it's not the individuals, it's not the flesh and blood concrete example that you're battling, but it's taking this bigotry out of the institution, which is a much more involved process. We could, I think it's fairly well known, for example, that we could elect the most honest and virtuous person in the country to go and serve the United States in Congress or in the presidency and living in the White House. And it would probably fail because our national legislature is comprised of over 500 people. And that's just the official elected positions. Because of which, any individual who comes into that system may find themselves like a fish swimming upstream, not able to actually get anything done because of how many other adversarial interests or honest. You could put honest people in those positions and they would find probably, I suspect, they would find that their hands frequently tied and unable to get anything done because the system that is in place, comprised of over 500 people, or considerably more actually, but over 500 elected people, is set up to reward bargaining and negotiating and being dishonest and manipulating things according to the interests of certain wealthy financial supporters, instead of serving the U.S. Constitution and the citizenry of the United States as well as possible. There is a sense in which the system is now prostituting the American people for the sake of the interests of select or specific wealthy individuals or companies. The primary battle before us then, even before the battle, is to understand that it's not the individuals in office that we're trying to change, it's the system itself that needs to change. It's not the, shifting to a different arena. There are police departments, law enforcement entities across the United States that from time to time are accused of being very racially motivated. Some against Asians, some against Latinos, some against blacks, any manner of different categorization. But changing the specific individuals has rarely been effective in removing the institutionalized bigotry from the law enforcement entity. Because again, it's not about the identities, it's not about who's the administrator now, it's about creating a system in which the behavioral dynamics, the actual bigoted behavior, cannot any longer happen because of establishing, accountability to a citizens group, because of establishing accountability to a media reporting group, that everything be done in an above-board fashion, no more sneaking around. If the argument is made that certain things need to be kept secret because the general public can't handle it, they couldn't act maturely and responsibly with this information, I suppose I would ask, well, whose fault is that? It doesn't excuse educating ourselves and developing maturity in such a way that the day will quickly come when secrecy is totally unnecessary. The only ones it serves are those who are doing criminal activity, who obviously don't want to be discovered, because then they would be the ones being arrested. The goal, it would seem, is to create a citizenry, because America is defined by democracy. I haven't met anyone in a while who believes that we still are, but because we're defined as a democracy, that means we're supposed to be the people, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In order to do that, of course, you have to educate and train the people so that they know how to do good government. And so that when they get elected and someone says, here, let me give you a bribe, let's do negotiations on the table, let's write a law that benefits this company, even if it is at the expense of the American people. To have enough elected representatives at that point who say no, that the mishandling of justice, mishandling of funds, misdistribution of national resources doesn't happen. As long as the majority of the people there in Washington, D.C. are willing to go along with it, however, the problem continues from generation to generation. As long as the majority of people in any law enforcement agency across the country are willing to consider themselves above the law or be more aggressive in pursuing a particular ethnicity or nationality or group, the problem will not change. It's got to be changing the system, not just changing the identities of the people in the offices, but actually coming up with a system that will more effectively do what the American people as a whole understand needs to be done. That in order for this to be a shared space and a shared country and a diverse country, being productive, having good community spirit, working together, supporting each person's unique creativity and individuality, at the same time as supporting cohesiveness and team dynamics and working together, and understanding that because it's a shared space, we all have a stake in it being the healthiest and most productive space that it can be. And it's not the identities, it's the dynamics. It's not who said that, who did that. It's not about blaming. It's about changing the way things happen, changing the actual activity. That when we elect representatives and congressmen and so forth, that when we appoint sheriffs and police chiefs, and that when those entities hire officers and workers, that all of this is done in a way that specifically rewards being oriented to the behaviors um, and not rewarding any sort of bias toward any particular categorization or issue of identity, but that it's specifically about behavior. Somebody sent me an email a little while back about an experiment. I don't know if it was literally done or not, but it sounded like it could have been done, and delightfully logical or rational or reasonable. Basically, the way the scenario was laid out is that there was a cage with about 5 or 6 monkeys in it. We'll say 5 monkeys. And there were some bananas hanging from a hook in the center of the top of the cage, and there was stairs leading up to where the bananas were so that the monkeys could go up the stairs and grab the bananas and eat the bananas. Well, as soon as a